Hello.
Hello. Hi. How
Hi.
you guys doing? Today is what day is it? It's May 13th. It's Wednesday, May 13th. And that makes it day 54 of our lockdown.
Hooray. I'm not feeling very well today, Ellie.
Are you not, Babs?
No, but I am drinking through it like a trooper. But I hope today doesn't
Yeah.
run to 3 takes like yesterday did.
Yeah, no, I won't. I won't touch the pause button. Whatever the animals do, you'll just have to deal with them while I carry on talking.
Okay.
Yes, no, I did know you weren't feeling very well today.
I know I
Not
was
like,
sort of doing that
yeah. But
for the viewer
you're
at
not
home.
feeling very well today, though, are you? You're not
I'm
feeling
not.
fabulous.
I'm not
Not
run
like
down.
he hasn't got the Rona. Don't worry.
No.
But you did have, for the first time in your life, an ocular migraine, didn't you?
Optical migraine, that was yesterday.
Um,
That was a weird experience. If you've not had one, an optical migraine, it's very strange. I had a sort of blurry circle in the bottom corner of my eye, and around it there was like a rim with all sort of colourful geometric patterns, a little bit like
When
a
you described it,
kaleidoscope.
I imagined the front cover of that Pink Floyd album, when you're like little triangles with rainbows and things, and I was just like, oh.
No, I would say it's almost nothing like the cover to Dark Side of the Moon. It was more like a kaleidoscope sort of effect,
Right.
but like with a blurry
Sounds
patch
quite
in the middle.
trippy.
Yeah, I mean, if you could kind of do it in a controlled way, might be quite fun to do for sort of
You
5
could
minutes.
choose to have it and look at
But
it and go, ooh.
to do it for sort of 20 minutes and not really know the cause of it and go, oh, have I
Yeah,
sort of torn my cornea
I
or
also
something?
found, like like I understand, obviously you were acting a little strange and it's because you could see things that I couldn't see.
It was very
But I was
distracting.
also a bit worried about you because you seemed a little bit spaced out as well, which maybe you were without realising it, or maybe you were just sort of going, oh, what is this? But
I
you were
think
sort of not, like, you weren't quite with it either.
I was trying to focus and it was weird. There's something in your vision the whole time, and like I say, because it's only subsequently I've got sort of described the symptoms to some opticians I know, because I was a bit worried I might have to actually go and break social distancing and see an optician, and they've told me it's an ocular migraine. But at the time I'm going, what is wrong with my eye? I don't know, and how long is it going to last?
Well, it's kind of scary when
Um,
you can see things because you're sort of going, is this my eyes or is this my brain?
Yeah,
Like,
it was.
what's going on?
So it was not ideal, but that sort of went away about 20 minutes later, and I was broadly fine. But
Yeah.
then today, this afternoon, I just out of the blue, so I'm feeling a bit rough out of nowhere. Yeah, it's just a bit off. I don't really know.
Bit tired, run down,
Yeah.
sleepy.
But we've had plenty. I've slept till about 1:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah, you slept quite
And
late today, and you were
then-
zonked as well because
yeah.
I got up I did not sleep well. I have been up fucking ages. Because I was in with Poppet because she seems to. I mentioned the other day that she was like a bit depressed. She seems to have turned a corner on that, but now she's become quite needy and clingy, so it's quite hard to leave her in the room when she's sort of
Yeah.
all over you. So I was in there until about 6:15. Well, I went to bed at like 4:30, and then I could hear her, so I woke up and I went back in there. So I was in there then till about 7:30, and then got back out, fed the other animals and came to bed, but then various animals came back in and woke me up, and I don't think you stirred for any of me going to Poppet's room, coming back, going downstairs for feeding. You just zonked, and then I woke up before you,
think
which
I
is
got up
unheard of.
At one point, I did get up and feed Ford.
Oh, well, you'd already had loads.
Oh well.
But yeah, so you were zonked, so I think maybe you're just a bit off colour, but I don't think you got the Rona. I think it's okay. I think, yeah, well, that's the thing, whenever you're feeling off colour, whenever anyone's feeling a bit off colour at the moment, they need to quantify it, be like, no, it's not corona.
I don't think it is, although no thanks to a lack of social distancing from some people. Like,
Was this on your trip to the shops?
well, yesterday we talked about my trip to Scotland,
Yeah.
but today I went to walk Lucy the dog in the woods, and I'll be honest, I wasn't really in the mood for dog walking today anyway, but it was fine. I sort of walked around the woods and took her out and gave her a chance to go to the toilet out there, and I was just leaving the woods, bringing her back, when I heard a voice like directly behind me. Oh, excuse me, mate. And I turn around, there's a guy with a bike, and like, admittedly, I was wearing headphones, but I didn't have things super loud. It wasn't ridiculous. I could hear things around me. Like, there was no need for him to wait until he was practically breathing on my neck to kind of ask, excuse me. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, there's no need. We had pretty much had the woods to ourselves, and he had to come up right behind me, and it just is really annoying when you're going like this. People are dying of this virus, and we're supposed to be maintaining social distance and not spreading it, and I'm trying to be responsible, and I
Yeah.
don't want to catch it.
No.
I don't want to bring it back to you. It's genuinely a bit like scary, some of the things you hear,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
we'll
no,
talk
it
about
is.
later. But so
It's also irksome because it's just selfish. It's
It
just
is.
not, it's thoughtless and
it's
it's selfish.
unnecessary.
And it puts, like, even if you're not particularly worried about it yourself, let's say you are one of those people going, oh, I'll be fine, or I don't think it's as bad as they say, you at least do know, though, that other people are anxious about this. So even if you're not, it's still a dick move to go up and sort of encroach on people's personal space, because you don't know if they're someone like me who's actually got, like, quite serious anxiety about this. Like, so even if you think, oh, well, their anxiety is misplaced, it's still a feeling that is valid, and don't be a dick.
And it's
I don't think it's accidental that I have sort of retreated into the house and I'm letting you do the various outdoor activities other than vet strips, which I will consider. But with the vet strips, we can be super careful. But yeah, it's kind of bullshit. People are just being, I think,
and when
there's
you go,
no real excuse for it.
Well, when you go, when you go to the shop down the road, like they are trying to have the kind of boxes on the floor and
Yeah,
and
well, it's not like you
maintain
could
the social
forget, is it? There's
No.
visual signs
and
everywhere.
and people are kind of breaking that, and that's frustrating. But at the same time, it's like, well,
It's a confined
it's
space.
a confined
it's
space.
tricky.
There's narrow aisles. But this when you're in a wood and it's like there's no one else in sight. Like two of you pretty much have the entire space of this wood to yourself, and they can't stay outside of a 2 meter radius of you. It's like, really, fuck the fuck off. And but the other thing is it just gives me no confidence in kind of when it gets to a point where at some point in the future I have to return to work
Yeah.
or start getting public transport and things again, that people are going to be sensible
It's
and
not filling you with
maintain-
confidence, is it?
Exactly. Like if two people in a wood can't be relied upon to maintain social distance between them, then what's it going to be like when I have to catch a train to Cardiff, for example?
I am going to handcuff myself to you and not let you go.
Good. Well, that's the attitude. That'll
that-
be useful.
I think that is what's going to happen, because I'm really not happy about you going.
Oh, I just have to carry you with me, and then that's no good. Use you as a human shield.
You will get tired very quickly. I am a heavy, heavy woman.
Pretty strong, mate.
You're going to carry me to Cardiff.
Yeah. Oh, I can roll you. I don't know.
At some
Figure
point,
something
it
out.
might be easier to roll me.
Put
I have
you
to
on
say.
wheels.
Take me in the little shopping trolley.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's kind of bullshit, and people are being annoying. I today, well, actually, before I get into that, I'll just explain. Felt like it. Okay, so now we can move on. Yeah.
Felt like it. So.
Yeah, well, I sort of had to do my face anyway, and we were in with Poppet while we were doing it, so I wasn't in a rush, and I just thought, I'm going to do that crazy 80s makeup I did for an 80s theme night the other day, and then I realised I'd done, like, crazy makeup, but I hadn't washed my hair, and, like, this face with just greasy hair in a ponytail didn't quite, it looked mental, so, wig. So, yeah.
I didn't have to do my face. Technically, don't even have to cover my torso, but very much my preference to...
What do you mean technically I don't have to... Well, nobody has to, but...
No, but that's what I mean, is like I didn't have to put a t-shirt on.
Oh, you did. I did make you take off the other one, though.
Well, it was very much my
like
choice.
it.
Very much my choice to wear something on my top half when I appear on camera. That's very much my preference.
I think that's fair. I think that's the couth thing to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, by the way, I don't make a habit of telling him what to wear. I just really, like, yeah. That's probably the only time I've ever told you what to wear, or not what not to, but I did. I put my foot down like a controlling twat. So this is just for funsies, really.
The t-shirt that she made me take off was a t-shirt for the comedy show Funs and Games, and if you know the show, you're probably aware of the sort of territory we're talking about. If you're not, well, that's fine. We're not going to explain it, but if you know, you know.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. Also, it's a horrible shade of yellow.
It is garish. It is garish.
But yeah, so that's just an aside, really. But yeah, so I will go. Like I am getting more and more anxious about reality, and more used. I think I am genuinely quite used to being in the house now, and I'm not sort of struggling with that aspect of lockdown. Missing people I care about is what I'm struggling about, but I'm not sort of desperately feeling the urge to sort of be in other places. I quite like my little house. It's full of my cats and my dog and a Chris, and it's nice. I like it. But yeah, it's more the sort of, and also, like I say, I've mentioned before, but previously I have had mental health issues, which, if left unchecked, do lean towards the agoraphobic, which I'm going to make sure I don't sort of go all the way down that path. But it does mean I have an innate comfort with being cooped up. Cooped up is safe. Cooped up, I know my surroundings. I can control my surroundings, and in the house is where I'm less anxious. Outside, under normal circumstances, fine. Genuinely think outside other people is legitimately anxiety causing, so it's probably not like poor mental health. I think reasonable reaction to stimuli, but I'm not keen on you being out and about, back at work. Mainly the public transport thing. I'm really not keen.
Well, I've had a phone call today, so we know that it definitely won't happen until sometime in June at the earliest. We don't know when that will be. No. Obviously,
it's sort of, trial and error, isn't it? They're going to sort of open up and see what the demand is, and kind of, but on a very limited sort of.
And obviously, if the R rate changes, then things might be rolled back, and so we don't know.
And I have
what's going to happen.
Some faith that the Welsh Government, at least, are going to be erring on the side of caution, judging by how they've gone so far. So I am fairly, I don't want to say confident, but I'm fairly happy with the idea that if it is too much of a risk, that they will dial things back rather than be pressured by economic purposes. One thing I did see today, just as an aside, but I loved it, the Welsh Government have confirmed that no Welsh, because all of the actual business grants it was sort of, the funds were released by Westminster, but they were then given to local authorities. Wales, so then it was the local authority that then doles them out. Wales has said that any businesses that are registered in tax havens or are overpaying executives and just still doing share bailout, like massive dividends to their high staff and stuff, don't get any help.
Nice.
And I am all for that. Basically, I think that should be the rule. You don't get taxpayer bailouts if you don't pay tax.
Yeah, if you haven't put anything in.
Yeah, why should you? You don't, I think, so I'm really glad that they've done that. I doubt Westminster will do the same because they're in the pockets of lots of very rich people. But I was very pleased to see that Wales have made that stand. Cool. I sort of feel like maybe the fact that they've kind of been pushed into the position, and this goes for Northern Ireland and Scotland as well, to kind of go their own way on one thing. I think maybe it's given them a little bit of, well, actually, we're going to do things our way. Fuck you. Yeah. And I like the way they're doing it. So I've never, ever been one for separation. I've never thought, like, independence was the way to go for Wales. I kind of always thought, and this goes for the EU as well, that the more of us in it together and working together, the better it is for everybody. But having been sort of taken out of the EU, and admittedly that, like, Wales voted that, I'm not gonna like say that that's not what Wales's choice, but for not being in the EU, I definitely don't want to be stuck here with these guys in charge. So actually now I'm kind of leaning more towards, well, maybe Wales is better off forging its own path, or even better, have some like Celtic union, so Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales all go, right, fine, fuck you.
The only thing about it, and I
reckon the Scots could get on side with that.
I'm pleased with how the Welsh Assembly are handling this. That's great. But
Welsh Parliament now.
Welsh Parliament, sorry.
Welsh Government, Parliament, but they're not Assembly anymore.
But as an Englishman, as an immigrant in your fair land, I do have a lot of family in England, and so I totally get where you're coming from, but at the same time, I don't want my family to be stuck under the thumb of the Tory rule.
Well, maybe they'll have to move here. All of them.
Yeah, get out while you still. Well, you can't right now, but get out when you can.
Well, actually, England have now also released restrictions. You can, estate agents can open. You can do house viewings. People can sell their houses at the moment again because it keeps the economy moving. So literally, they've said that nannies can come back to work. House cleaners can come back to work. So you can have your cleaner and your nanny in your house, but you can't have your mum. if ever this was a sign of the kind of people making these decisions, it's ridiculous.
I mean, it does.
But yeah, so you can also sell your house. You can have strangers come and do a house viewing, but you can't have your friends over.
It feels like you should be able to at least have your mum round to do some childcare in the same capacity as a nanny.
Yeah.
Maybe if you pay your mum.
Yeah, maybe
like
we
a
could.
Token amount.
Yeah, just like, okay, here's a fiver, mum. Not my mum.
Not Ellie's mum, because we do not have.
We don't have a child to care for.
And we don't have work to go back to at the moment.
No.
Although, again, I mean, we've said this before, but it's not a case of going, oh, we don't want to go back to work because we're on the Skive and we're having a lovely time not working, because we would like to have some more money coming in. I am on 80% of the wage. Well, I'm making no money from comedy at the moment, but I normally would be making. I'm on 80% of the wage of a part-time job, and it is not a high-paying part-time job either. With the best will in the world to my employers, the per hour rate, I'm not raking it in. And I've been trying to do some extra bits and pieces. I've been trying to do some freelance writing work, but
not enough of you read the Beatles article, did you?
Well, I mean, let's not blame these lovely people, because I think essentially I did try...
I'm talking to the entire internet.
I did try getting one of my articles kind of shared around a bit on Facebook and sort of asked people, hey, I get paid per view, could you share it around? And it was very kind of everyone that did, but I'm not sure it particularly made a significant difference. So I haven't really done that going forward, although I do put them around for people to watch, to look at if they want. But the one I wrote that took a few days and was put a lot of work and effort into, and it's made me 46p. So that's good. It's based on
Drinks are on you.
Like 900 odd views. So which is like at the moment, it's weird. It's hard when you put the work into something.
Yeah, and you did work on that one for quite a long time.
And some of them have made a bit of money, and hopefully people enjoy reading them, and you kind of want to get paid for your work, because most of all we want cat food. And it's just the kind of you think, oh well, it's 80% of my wage, but I've got nowhere to go, nowhere to be. But it turns out that that 20% of my wage that I've dropped is the 20% that covers cat food. Although it isn't really, as I say, 20% of my wage, because I've got 80% of my part-time optician's job.
Normally make a decent extra percentage of your on comedy.
From live comedy, and I have none of that. So I'm not really on 80% of my wage. I'm more like...
To be generous about it, maybe 50?
Maybe on about 50% of my wage, depending on the month.
Depending on the gigs, but
But so, which is fine. Like, we're not starving. We're doing okay. We're not, we're all right. But it does mean that we still have to think about and worry about money, and we're not on the Skive, is my point. We're not trying to do
I would love to be back in work, but I'm not going to go back to work until it's safe to do so.
Exactly. It's about... And someone actually... This kind of ties into something that I put a Facebook status. I was looking this up on my phone, so if you saw me glance at my phone, I wasn't like so bored of these blogs that I've now just started browsing the internet. I was trying to look this up because I put a Facebook status, because more people have died from coronavirus now than died during the Blitz. And if you want to look at the actual statistics of people, I know you can say people who've died.
Well, I've got some specific... I will talk a little bit about the statistics.
Yes, Ellie will talk about later, but whether you look at the kind of the number of extra deaths or the number specifically of people who died, it's a significant number of people. It's more people than died during the Blitz. And I said, on this Facebook, I just said, during the Blitz, do you think people were saying, remember though, people die of flu every year. Yeah, the numbers look bad, but some of those people would have died anyway from old age or underlying health conditions. No, they were trying to save people and not die from German bombs. Thank you very much. And someone I know sort of responded to that with a comment, and I won't read the whole comment, but they kind of ended going, the comparisons to war are strange. War involves people risking their lives to protect their livelihoods. This virus situation is the other way round.
No, it's not.
I completely disagree.
Everybody who works in the health service is risking their lives to protect their jobs and to protect other people's lives as well. It's bonkers.
I mean, obviously, we can't... It being a virus and not a neighbouring sort of army, we can't fight it in the same way that we would a war, but the front line, in this instance, is... And again, Ellie's going to talk about that a bit later, but it is the doctors and nurses and people in critical care... units and things, and it's not no, it's not selfish, but there are people who are on the front line who are risking their lives and putting their lives ahead of their livelihoods and things.
And as well as that, like as well as obviously that, because they're the obvious frontline people who are dealing with people who have coronavirus, but actually the other frontline workers are people who are just going to work in places like supermarkets every day, waste disposal, all of those sorts of jobs where they are risking their life, they're risking their health every day in order to keep their job so that they've got money on the table. They're doing it for the rest of us. And I think to sort of be dismissive of that is very disrespectful.
And also, those of us who are staying home, who are lucky enough not to kind of have to go out on the front lines and kind of can stay home and look after ourselves, yeah, we are, excuse me, kind of, I guess, putting our lives ahead of our livelihoods, if you want to frame it like that. But equally, during the Blitz, people were blacking out their windows and going down to air raid shelters and looking after themselves. They weren't going, oh, well, but,
I'm going to have a bonfire
we're going to keep the pubs open because that's what keeps the money. During the Blitz, they would have been closing pubs, wouldn't they, and going home early and all sorts of things like that, that were putting their lives ahead of their livelihoods, and rightly so,
Yeah.
So I kind of think, it's closer than maybe people
would, and I think, well, so that does take me on to what one of the things I want to talk about, which is this morning, it was actually on television a night or two ago. Was it last night or the night before? But it was on television this week. But it's a BBC. It's on BBC. It's on BBC iPlayer, so you can rewatch it. It's called Critical. Critical coronavirus in intensive care. And now it's part of a series that they actually have already made, which was just covering an intensive care unit, which happens to be in our local hospital, the Royal Gwent Hospital, which is in Newport. We've mentioned, so this one's a little bit different because obviously you can't send a film crew at the moment. It was filmed throughout April in the Royal Gwent, but it's all centred around the intensive care unit, and it's all filmed by the staff that are working there on their phones. I think they also may have sent them some cameras that they could sort of put as body cams and things to kind of capture what was going on there. We've mentioned on this blog previously that at the beginning of this, Newport was quite an early epicenter of where the coronavirus bug was kicking off, but certainly in Wales, but actually it had a higher infection rate per capita than most of the rest of the UK. I think at one point it was the hotspot. Thankfully, not thankfully, because it's not actually that it's getting loads better here, it's just that other places caught up. But so this is all set in intensive care. It's an incredibly important watch. I think there are people out there that don't want to think about it, and I get it. I think that's also why so many people are kind of trying to argue the point that this isn't as bad as all that, and the numbers are skewed, and it isn't all that, which I'll get onto. But I get that. But I think everybody should watch this documentary because it shows what's happening on the front line. It isn't all doom and gloom. It's showing a certain amount of resilience of the staff and the kind of things that are going on behind the scenes. And there are some very touching and lovely scenes. Sort of the public have done quite a lot of donations. They're donating food and snacks and drinks so that and hot meals and things so that people working in the hospitals are well looked after and well fed and well rested as much as possible because they're all pulling extra shifts and long shifts. But yeah, there was one standout moment for me. The whole thing, to be honest, I was quite emotional from the word go.
Yeah, sorry, to be clear, it's quite a serious...
Sorry, there's a cat thinking about...
And if you're seeing me kind of grinning away, it's because...
There's a cat.
There's a cat being bonkers in the corner and trying to drag the...
trying to climb the curtains.
Yeah, and drag the lamp off the table and all sorts. So sorry about that, but yes, you were saying.
The whole thing it's an hour long. It's not just BBC Wales. It's on across the BBC. So go to iPlayer, right, critical coronavirus, and it'll come up. But there was one standout part for me, which I will unashamedly admit, I wasn't just a bit choked up. I was sobbing. It was heartbreaking, but it was obviously all hospitals have a 0 visitors policy at the moment, which is hard for anyone who's got relatives in the hospital. I think even the maternity units, if the fathers are allowed to attend the birth, but then they have to go home and wait till their partner and child are discharged.
And obviously it's quite
so they're the
stressful.
only people that are actually sort of allowed to go and visit someone in hospital, and that's only for birthing partners, and it's all very basically there's no visitors, so that would be hard anyway at the best of times. But quite a lot of these people are sadly at the end of their lives. To be honest, one of the things they do cover is you don't get sent to intensive care if there's no chance for you. Intensive care is for those that they think they might be able to save with intensive care. So they get several referrals a day that they don't take because it's like, we don't think we can actually do anything for these people. They're too far gone, they're too sick, or whatever. But it does mean that quite often they will give people their best shot, but they don't make it. That's the case anyway with whatever patients they've got. But the thing that's different at the moment is the families of patients that are there can't visit. And most of the patients that are there with corona are unconscious. Some of them are in induced comas. They're on ventilators, so they can't speak anyway because they've got a tracheotomy. So the doctors and nurses who would normally, I think one of the sort of doctors there basically described about 50% of your job is dealing with the family of a patient and talking them through what's going on. We're doing all of that still, but we're doing it by phone in full PPE, so they can't really hear us properly. We can't see them. It's all very disembodied, and it feels very cold, and sometimes you're having to give heartbreaking news to a voice on the end of the phone. One of the nurses there discusses what she did for the family of a patient, and basically she what they had been doing, people have donated, which is lovely, donated a lot of iPads to them so that patients can have video chats with and old phones that have been repurposed for it and things like, so that they can have video chats with their family. This nurse basically knew that one of the patients was coming to the end of their life. It was a gentleman. Obviously confidentiality was kept at all times throughout it, but it was a gentleman. He had an adult daughter, and it was end of life. There was nothing more they could do, and machines were going to be switched off. So she spoke to the patient's daughter and said, you might think this is barbaric, but this might be something that might help you. Normally we would allow family to attend the end of life. Obviously we can't do that at the moment. If you would want to, we can video call with you so you can say what you want to say, and the patient's daughter was very grateful, and she did. And that scene was absolutely heartbreaking, because the idea that I'm getting a bit upset talking about it, but the idea of your parent being alone and you can't visit and you can't say goodbye, but that's the reality of what's happening with this illness. It's a reality that unfortunately happens every day, but normally you can be there, you can hold their hand and say what you want to say in person. This has stripped us of that. We can't do that, and it's heartbreaking. So anyone, and I've seen some people doing this, throwing around horrible, because people are talking about the NHS being heroes, and there's debate about whether or not we should be talking about them in those terms, because actually they're doing their job. They're not heroes, they are doing their jobs.
And it's more valuable to acknowledge that they are people doing their jobs who deserve to be paid
Yeah.
a decent whack for it.
But there is backlash from some idiots who are sort of going, oh, they're just filming TikTok videos and enjoying all the glory, and I don't get a clap for my job. And there are dickheads out there with that view. You've never had to do something as hard as that in your job, whatever your job is. Whatever your job is, you've never had to do that.
And if they find a way to kind of let off a little bit of steam between incredibly busy, intense periods of work, stressful, emotionally draining periods of work,
it's for their own sanity.
Brilliant.
And do it. Do whatever you have to get through this, because not many people, I think most people wouldn't have the fortitude to be able to do that day in, day out. Several of them were going in, and because they're recording their lives throughout this month. One of the nurses, for example, said, I've had 2 days off, and now I'm going back in, and anxious, and you could visibly see she looked like I look when I'm feeling like I've got an anxiety attack coming. You could hear it in her voice. She was talking about how nervous she was about going back into work because she's like, at the moment, 2 days, everything changes in 2 days. I might be going back to basically battle stations. Essentially, watch the documentary, because I could talk about it at length, and again we're running towards the end of time, and actually I will also, just so I remember to say, I will also put a link in today's blurb and hopefully talk about it tomorrow, but I want to get it out there, which is an analysis of why different numbers are being stated in different places. I'll talk about it in tomorrow's.
Talk about that in more detail tomorrow.
But I will put the link up tonight so that you can have a look at that.
But I did have one more major takeaway from that that television program, which was them just talking about how overstretched they are, the lack of supplies, the lack of staff. They've got more people sort of crowded into intensive care than they would normally
by a
have.
long way, tripled easily, and that's by opening up other wards and expanding.
And what that has meant is they've got fewer staff per patient, not because that's what they want, but because they are overstretched. They don't have the staff, they don't have the numbers, and it has...
and staff are coming in from other departments who've never worked in ICU.
And because they don't have enough staff for the number of patients, it has led to a measurable increase in the mortality rate. They also don't have enough drugs for everyone. They don't have enough kidney machines. They're completely overstretched. And I've seen people on Facebook and things saying, well, you know, these Nightingale hospitals are standing empty. That obviously proves that the NHS have got things under control and we can start to loosen kind of lockdown. That was the whole point, is to protect the NHS, and we've done it. And no, they are overworked, overstressed, oversubscribed, and understaffed, and they don't have enough resources, and they're
pulling it out of thin air, and they're doing an amazing job.
Absolutely,
but it's not like, we can all relax now because there's room in ICU.
If you think that the Nightingale hospitals being empty means that the NHS is just coping just fine, it is not.
No,
and that is in no part due to the staff there, who are working incredibly hard, but they just don't have the resources.
I don't say this lightly. Watching some of those things, and I keep saying it, but please watch this documentary. It's a hard watch, but it's important. Some of the sort of tales that they're telling and some of the experiences they're having, I don't say this lightly. I'm not bandying around sort of psychological terms lightly. There will be PTSD effects to some of these staff dealing with this, because just the all day, every day, incredibly intense life or death decisions, that it's already a hard job when everything's normal. They're working on triple capacity, having to make decisions like, well, we don't have any of that drug. What other drug can we use? What other combinations of drugs can we use? Where can we, so also quite a lot of their job is now calling around other health boards to get the supplies that they need. It's incredibly difficult.
They were expecting some stuff from Swansea Hospital, and then they got word that no, Swansea didn't have as much stuff as they thought they had, so no, they're just not getting the stuff.
No.
And then they have to make do with what
and
they've
I think
got.
that's happening around the whole country, in England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. Everybody is kind of sharing resources as best they can, but also there is a sense of, well, there isn't enough anywhere. So, okay, those guys are oversubscribed now, so we will send them some stuff now, but we will want them to send us some stuff later, because we'll probably be oversubscribed at some point. Watch the documentary, basically.
Yeah. So this hasn't been a particularly cheery end to the vlog,
but I do look fabulous.
You do look fabulous, and I am the lucky kind of beneficiary of that. But so are you all watching this, and it's time to go. So without further ado, let's do the catchphrase.
Like
and subscribe. There's no shame in it.
No shame in it.
There's no shame in it.